Hi, this is Brandy Shantz, and welcome to Living Chronic. Today, I'm speaking with Holly Bertone, podcast host, Gratitude Builds Fortitude. She is a chronic warrior, Hashimoto's disease, and a breast cancer survivor. So thank you for joining me today, Holly.
Hi, Brandy. Thanks so much for having me on the show. And I'm super excited to be here, and especially with what both of us have been through in our communities, and to be able to share my story and talk about gratitude. And also, I just want to say right off the bat, if you're listening and you just hear the word gratitude and you're rolling your eyes or like, ugh, right?
Mm.
Just I'm going to challenge you to keep listening because your mind's going to be blown by the end of the episode. So.
And you know what? I feel like that's true. Every time I do an episode, there's so much experience with people who deal with chronic illness. And when you've been dealing with it for a long time, you learn certain techniques, you learn how to process things, you learn how to live your life. And I know for a fact that so many people hear these things like gratitude and, you know, movement makes life better and get vitamin D. But the reality is it truly works and it is helpful. And it's those kind of techniques that we work through really just to help us live, to get through life. And you've really done a lot of work on this to make your life better. So tell me a little bit about, gratitude and how that's changed your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I share a little bit about my backstory first before we get into
Oh,
that?
yes,
Because I think
please. Yes.
if we have a few minutes, I think it's important to kind of share where I came from because, people see, and especially like on Instagram, Holly.Bertone, um, shameless self-promotion there. But
Mhm.
yeah, on Instagram, like I'm always dancing and happy, and people are like, why are you so happy all of the time? Like, doesn't that get annoying? And here's the thing, like you see me publicly like that, and I am like that behind the scenes as well. But it wasn't always like that. And this is a very conscious decision to that my life is this way. And I really like to share a little bit about what it was like so that you understand like this is possible for you. And part of that is my backstory. Before I got sick, I was the quintessential overachiever. I think we've
Mhm.
got some things in common there too.
Mhm.
I was the chief of staff for one of those three-letter federal government agencies that they make TV shows about. So it was a very high stress management position. And I was a competitive athlete. I raced in Xterra triathlons, the off-road triathlons. I mountain bike raced. I took Muay Thai. There's like kind of like boxing kind of lessons. I traveled all over. I drank margaritas with my girlfriends. Like that was what I thought a perfect life was supposed to be in my 30s. And then at the time it was. And on my 39th birthday, I got the phone call. And the doctor on the other end said, I'm calling to let you know the test results came back. And I'm sorry to let you know you have breast cancer. Don't worry, it's the good kind. Go find a surgeon. Good luck.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, the tests were all in process. Like I knew that deep, deep down, the second I felt the lump, I knew
Mhm.
every fiber in your being as a woman that tells you something's wrong, stranger danger. I knew. But hearing those words at that point, everything in my life was a demarcation from before cancer and after cancer. And there is no good kind of cancer, none,
Right.
zero, zilch. It was a small and lazy tumor. If anyone's listening cares, it was ERPR positive, HER2 negative. I went through surgery, chemo, and radiation, but it was not a good kind of cancer.
Right.
So, first time in my life I was ever excited about being lazy at something. Um, so, but yeah, and so I did all of that, and I just kept pushing through
Mhm.
cancer. I kept doing all of the things. You know, my the high stress management job where they were so accommodating. But
That's
I would
great.
go in on the which was great, but I would go in on the weekends, right? And
Yeah.
work when I could. I would, come in a few hours and work before driving myself to chemo. I would close the door to my office and take a nap in the middle of the day. Like it was just to get through treatment. They were so good about it, but I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I did not stop.
Mhm.
And after treatment ended, I did not get better. In fact, my health kept getting worse. And I would go in and I was like, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, no, no. Like, you're you've been through chemo and cancer and, it's going to take a while to get better. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I used to be a competitive racer. I used to go non-stop with my life. And I go into support group. These women, they're out there doing those 5K pink ribbon races. I can't get out of bed. Something is wrong with me. And it took a year of just pushing for additional tests until I was finally diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And when I got that diagnosis from my doctor, I was like, woohoo, just give me some pill, give me medicine. Cause he's like,
Gonna
oh
be
yeah, we're
better.
going to give you, yeah, I don't think it was Synthroid or whatever. I was like, yeah, we're going to give you some medicine. And I was like, woohoo, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be healthy again. I'm going to be out doing my races and jumping back at work and all the things. Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yep.
That didn't happen. So it was quite a few years. My health just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And in 2017, I had already changed positions at that point. I was doing different stuff, different management team. And the new management team came in. I called them the Mean Girls. They decided that they did not like the fact that I was sick. I had all of the EEO and the FMLA and all the official paperwork filled out.
Hmm.
They figured out a way to illegally rescind it all. So I was pretty much stuck. Like, I'm sick. I'm falling asleep at work. I'm exhaust like, and like, and I know anyone listening to this, it's not just, oh, I'm tired, just take a nap. No, no, no. It's that bone crushing fatigue, like leaving work at the end of the day, praying that I can walk 3 blocks from the office to my car, getting into my car, turning on the ignition, praying that I'm not going to fall asleep to get home, and then trying to
Yep.
figure out how am I going to make dinner for my family at night. Like, it's, yeah,
Everyone who's gone through this knows that feeling
yeah,
when you cannot physically keep your eyes open and your
yeah,
body is not going to move.
yeah,
And we need a new word for it because it's more than fatigue.
right. Yeah. It's like our body saying, I'm just done.
I quit.
And I
Yeah.
think that's actually what it was. They, that I, and I've seen this on like memes on Instagram and, heard people talking about it, but, it really is true.
Hmm.
When your body whispers and you're like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Right. And then your body's like talking to you in normal conversation. You're like, yeah, yeah, whatever. And you ignore it and ignore it, ignore it. Finally, your body is screaming at you.
Hmm.
And finally, and you still ignore it. And then your body's just like, and we're done. Right.
Hmm.
Like, we are just done. And I think that that's what happened because I didn't listen. I just kept going and going and going and pushing myself until I was forced to stop. And when I was forced to resign, I mean, it was a very, very comfortable salary. Losing half of our family's income in the DC metro area was just brutal.
It's
And
difficult.
yeah, yeah. And not only that, like my entire identity, like my identity was like, I'm successful. That's what I do.
Yes.
And my career, everything was, my entire identity was around that. So it wasn't just rock bottom with my health. It was rock bottom with my life, with my identity, with my purpose,
Hmm.
with my passion, with everything, because I felt like I was failing at everything. I couldn't work. I could barely take care of my family, like laying in bed. And I was like, I'm just done. Like, is this the best that life is ever going to be? And with everything, like, then when logic kicks in, right? Everything that I had been through, with the, the chemo and the cancer and, the Hashimoto's, like, oh, this is just how my life is supposed to be. And there was an acceptance of this is how life is supposed to be. And then I'm like, no, no, this is not okay. And so growing up, my mother had Addison's disease. She was diagnosed when she was pregnant with me. Her life mantra, her entire life, she always said, it builds fortitude. And I never really knew what it meant.
Hmm.
It builds fortitude. It builds fortitude. It's kind of like, oh, I'm going through the tough time, so I'm building fortitude. Like, I kind of thought that's what it meant. And as throughout all of my health challenges, but especially at rock bottom number 3, especially when I was at a point where everything was stripped from me and it could not have looked any worse. I mean, aside from
Hmm.
dying, like, I don't think life could have been any worse at that point. And I kept hearing her words in my head, it builds fortitude. And I was like, okay, I have a choice. I can either say that this is the way life is going to be for the rest of my life and just marinate in my own misery, or I can do something about it. And what got you here won't get you there. So I decided to take radical responsibility for my health and for my life. And that's when everything changed.
Good for you. And that's, that's the biggest first step, making that change, saying,
Yeah.
this isn't working. I need to find a way to live my life in a positive manner,
Yep.
despite my illness, despite my disease, despite everything I've been through. And I need to make a change.
Yeah.
It's the first step, but it's a big step and it's a difficult step to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you,
It's looking in the mirror. Like, I'm always like, everyone in our world, like we take our pills, we take our supplements, we take our medicine, right? Looking in the mirror and taking personal responsibility is the hardest pill you will ever swallow.
truly, it's so difficult, but you did it.
Yes.
And that's amazing
Thank
because
you.
I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And one of the things I keep trying to really address and talk about a lot on this show is just how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick of seeing the news and it's just this person had got cancer and then they wrote a book and founded a nonprofit. This person was struck with multiple sclerosis and then went to the Olympics. Well, I haven't written my book yet. I'm still trying to get through daily life, trying to figure out how to survive, trying to figure out how to get through my depression, how to get through my trauma. I'm a failure, but I'm not. Because what the news missed was that big chunk where it's just gosh darn hard. It is
Yes.
really difficult to pick yourself up. You don't just found that nonprofit overnight. You don't just find your gratitude overnight. It's hard work.
Yes, it is. It's brutal. And
It's
I
the
don't sugarcoat it. Yeah.
no. And please don't ever, if I could just scream one thing from the rooftops for everybody to hear, it's hard. Everybody comes up to me, oh, you're so strong. Do you have any idea what it took to stand up?
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
But here's the thing too, Brandy. Choose your hard.
You have to choose your hard. You're right. Make those decisions. They're important
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
They're very important decisions. And how you make those decisions really will dictate what the rest of your life is going to look like.
Yeah.
And you made some really big changes. I
I
mean,
did.
you and I have a lot in common.
I
The
know.
fitness, the, super duper type A. I always tell people I'm type A plus. I've got to be the best at everything. My whole identity is being successful. It is, doing all these things, being Miss Ultra, productive. I do 17,000 things in one day and wake up at 4 a.m. I still right now struggle with who am I right now that I can't wake up at 4 a.m., run 20 miles, go to work, spend 15 hours in an office, still find time to work on some volunteer work after that and sleep maybe 4 hours. Obviously that's unhealthy when you
Yeah.
take a step back. But and there's so many people like both of us, when that's your entire identity and
Yeah.
it's taken away from you, you got to work to find your new identity and build something new.
Well, and it's interesting that you brought that up because, that's kind of what I did. Like I'm like, okay, I put on the overachiever hat because I didn't know what other hat to put on.
Yeah.
So I got my certified natural health coach certification. At that point, I just wanted to get myself healthier. So I'm like, okay, let me learn about like more natural health and how my body can maybe feel better
Mhm.
and things that I can do. And I had been studying a little bit, like okay, maybe I'll go gluten free and try some things. So so I did that at that point. I mean, now I'm a health coach, but at that point was for my own just healing.
Mhm.
I went down, like I put that overachiever hat on and I did the things. I did the like going gluten free
Mhm.
and the dairy, removing all the processed foods and the sugars and the minimizing the toxins and the parasite cleanses and the infrared saunas and the yoga and the meditation and all the things that they tell you to do. And the coffee enemas, because sticking a tube of coffee up your butt, so much fun. um like doing all the things because that's what overachievers do. We do the things.
Yes.
And I still didn't see results.
So what did you do to get your results?
I started looking within.
Mhm.
And so one thing that as a kid, I used to put, I still actually do, but as a kid, we had this huge dining room table, and I would take 3 different puzzles and I would dump them out on the table. And these were like 500, 1,000 piece puzzles, like the big ones. I dump them out on the table, mix them up, and then put them back together. Like I was that nerdy of a kid. I just still do puzzles every day. But I put that kind of that analytic background that I had with my project as a project manager, that analytics, that puzzle solving. And I'm like, what am I missing? Something is missing here, right? Like this is the stuff that everyone tells you to do. Why is it not working? Why is the medicine not working? Why is nothing working? And what I realized, I kind of went back to my mother's life mantra, it builds fortitude. Like, what is the it? Like, is this it? What is this it thing that she always was talking about? And what I realized was the it that she was referring to was gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at her life and looking at her legacy was how she used her gratitude for everything, despite her circumstances, despite
Mm-hmm.
how bad she felt on any given day, that she made the most of it. Her positive outlook on life, her giving personality, just her entire spirit. Like she could be at her absolute worst, walk in a room, and everyone would feel better. Like that's who she was.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to connect those puzzle pieces. And that got me into the rabbit hole because, again, hello, overachiever. I can't help myself. But I did. I jumped into the science of gratitude and I learned about the psychoneuroimmunology and the neuroplasticity and how the brain is connected to your health, and also the brain heart connection, and how gratitude is really at the top of the food chain to
Mm-hmm.
help to reduce that stress and inflammation in your body. That when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a disease state, any kind of disease state, your body's inflamed. And you can
Yeah.
try all the protocols and try all the things, but until that inflammation goes down, until you can make that shift in your nervous system from the sympathetic, the stress, the stress state, to the parasympathetic, to your rest and digest, your body's never going to heal. And I'm not talking cure. I'm not talking, 0 to running marathons. I'm talking just getting better.
Yes.
And gratitude changed my brain. It changed my outlook. And it really went from a place of focusing on problems to focusing on solutions. And when your brain is now wired to focusing on solutions, you kind of
Mm-hmm.
show up in a different place. Like you wake up in a whole different world of possibility. And when you're
Right.
always looking for possibilities, those opportunities are always in front of you. And
Mm-hmm.
again, we can get into the science, we can talk about this more. And people are like, wait, gratitude, really? Because I know, like, you think gratitude, it's like this, like, oh, rainbows and unicorns and puppy kisses and, walking around in this, like, land of, you know, levitating 6 feet off the ground and, wearing rose colored glasses. And it's not that. And, people also think of gratitude as making a list of 3 things. Like, wait, I made a list of 3 things. It doesn't work. Like, I don't even feel good in the moment, and they make that list of 3 things of like, this does not work. Well, that's not gratitude. That's a list.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. That's what everyone tells us. Like the experts do that. You read any kind of article, you listen to a podcast or anything, and people are like, oh, just make a list of 3 things you're grateful for. And it's almost dismissive, which
It
really
is.
annoys me. It really annoys me. If you want to see a million eye rolls on Instagram, just it's what I do on Instagram. I give that like lots of eye rolls. And yeah, and that's why I started my podcast too, because like there's so many misconceptions about gratitude. There's so many misconceptions out there. And people just think that it's this thing, this list of 3 things. This I'm gonna, go around the Thanksgiving table and say what
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for. But it literally changes the chemistry in your brain. And it starts from your heart. That's the big difference, is that it's not a list. It's not something that you do. It's who you become.
Right.
And that being starts in your heart. And when you can connect your heart and your brain together in that space of gratitude, in that space of love, in that space of just elevating the way that you view the world,
Mm-hmm.
then that chemistry starts to change in your brain. That inflammation starts to lower. Decisions, like when we're stressed, think about decisions, right? When when we're stressed, when we're angry, when we're in a fight with someone, when we're upset, do you say kind things, or does like your mouth just get hijacked and all
Oh,
kinds of
yes.
like nasty things come out of your mouth, right? Or
Right.
do you make good decisions, or do you make really bad decisions? You know, even like the food we eat, like when I'm stressed, I go for the junk food. I don't keep a lot of it in the house, honestly, but you
But
know,
it
I
is that
do.
immediate high.
Yeah, it's just it's human nature. It's what we do.
Hmm.
So when our amygdala is in that, when our nervous system is in the parasympathetic, in that rest and digest, our amygdala can make good decisions. When
Hmm.
we are in that stress state, we make bad decisions. So it's also giving you a clear mind. I mean, how many people listening have brain fog, right? Like everyone, raise your hand. Like I still
Uh-huh.
struggle. Yeah.
Yeah,
And when we're in that state, it's hard to have the clear mind. It's hard to think straight. It's like this cacophony of chaos, right?
it is.
That it's just like all the things, all the things, all the things. And when you wake up and all you can think about is your disease state, that's all you think about. When you
Yes.
wake up and all you can think about is your anxiety or your depression or how tired you are or how much in pain you are, that is in your thoughts 100% of the time. And guess what? When that's in your thoughts 100% of the time, that's all you're thinking of. And that's
Yeah.
all you're focused on. So I'm not saying like gratitude's this like miracle cure or anything. It is not. But what it does, it helps to change the chemistry in your brain. And that is what has the ripple effect to everything in your life. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because so many people are like, oh, just make a list of 3 things. No, 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 no,
No,
no. Gratitude is so much better than that.
it is. As a matter of fact,
I'm a little passionate.
well, I've become very passionate about these things myself because, and I'm still going through my own journey, as you know. This is all very new for me, and all I knew is I had to pull myself out of the state I was in, or I was going to die.
Yeah.
And that was it. I
Yeah.
either needed to find a way out, or I was going to die.
Yeah.
I only had two choices.
Yeah.
And I decided I really wanted to pull myself out.
And I'm
So
glad
I
you did.
tried to come up with these things and work through them and change my brain. But like you talked about, boy, do I get negative real fast. When they often will say, well, you should just be grateful. At least, as you've been going through all this and you couldn't work, your husband makes plenty of money. What? I shouldn't complain about the pain and the suffering and the loss of my entire life as I once knew it because my husband isn't poor?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? No. This is not I'm not going to write down the 3 things that makes my life better than the next person who's also sick.
Right.
Not at all. Not happening. I'm trying to just change the way I view it, the way I look at it. And I'm still going through it. It's very difficult because, to be honest, and I'm sure there's many people listening who go through the same thing. You think, but you know what? Why am I trying so hard? This just isn't fair. It's not fair. Why
Right.
did this happen to me? You know, it, we're all right. It's not fair. It
Right.
really isn't fair. There's some people that just sail through life, never have problems. They have tons of luck. They always seem to meet the right person, take advantage of the right opportunity. They've never had a health problem. They've never had a family emergency. And good for them, but that's not me. And it's not fair. But there's
And
nothing I can change about that.
yeah.
It isn't fair. Okay, now what else am I going to do? Because if I keep thinking about how unfair it is, I am going to die. So I do get very passionate about these things. I know that's the only way out to the other end. It's all of these things that we talk about, all these things I'm learning from people like you. That's what gets you to the other end. And it's very
Yeah.
important.
And you know, you brought up a really good point. Like you're in that place and you know, and it may not be like I'm going to die like literally, but you feel that way. Like this is it. Like this is it. And that sky, you look in that sky and there is no light. You've got this completely dark sky and there is no light. And that is my challenge. You're listening to this. Is my challenge to you is to find whatever that light is
Hmm.
for you. The my coaching clients, the students that I teach in the gratitude lab, like that's what we do first. We find that light. We find that North Star. We find like what is that light that's shining? Because what happens is that this journey is like there is 100% probability that the journey's not linear, that it's ugly and
Yeah.
it's messy and there's going to be setbacks along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And when those setbacks happen, you can either focus on the setbacks or you continue to focus on, your North Star, your why, that light in the sky. And
And it's
yeah,
also important to remember it's something you have to do every day. The
yeah,
work doesn't end
it is a conscious decision every single day.
every single day. And I think that's one of the things I almost wanted to believe. I would finally get to a therapist, I would go through therapy, and then I'm back to normal, moving on. And that's not how it is. I have to figure out a way to use the techniques I'm learning to work through each and every day. And I still have some very bad days where it's almost like, have I even tried and done anything at all? And things get very low, but then I work to bring it back up again. And I try to use gratitude. I try to use these various concepts I've learned. I try to focus on things that make me happy. I try to put in work and give back to others. And I think that's for me has been the most healing for me was putting in work and giving back to others.
Yeah.
Joining the board of the Crohn's Colitis Foundation, doing a lot of volunteer work. That's really what has given me back a lot of my life, just being able to help others.
And you brought up a really good point, Brandy. And I always like to say, you meet gratitude where gratitude's at, and like gratitude meets you where you're at. And it's almost like a
Mm-hmm.
kid, right? Like if you have
Yes.
kids or no kids or whatever, like you can't talk to a kid like an adult, right? You kind of have to meet them on their terms. Even pets, like we were talking about
Yes.
our fur babies, kind of the same way. And gratitude's like that. Like gratitude will accept you where you're at, and for you, like that's what brings you joy. That's what you focus on. For someone else, volunteering may not be their thing. That may not give
Right.
them joy. So it's going to be something else. But it's finding that, whatever that is that fills your heart. And that's really where it starts,
Mm-hmm.
is feeling that gratitude in your heart, feeling that joy in your heart, feeling that happiness in your heart, even if it's tiny, even if it is just one grain of sand of light in that sky. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what you focus on. And all of a sudden, that one grain of sand, that one little light in the sky becomes two. And then it becomes three. And then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes four. And then maybe that fifth one gets a little bit bigger. That's a little bit bigger of a light, and that's where it starts. It's not zero to, happy pants.
No, not at all. And you may have some good days, but then, oh boy, are there days I wake up and think, oh, this is not good at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, I just recorded an episode for my podcast, for the Gratitude Builds Fortitude podcast, on my divorce, talking
Mm-hmm.
about all the gratitude lessons. I mean, it's public now, and that was, the last year of my life has given me an opportunity to really put everything that I've learned, everything that I teach, how I coach, everything to an advanced level.
Yes.
And it's one thing to have gone through it myself. It's another thing to now teach and coach. But then you kind of bring it back. I'm like, okay, I've got a front row seat to this. Like, what is my life going to look like going through this? And how am I going to show up? And yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was a divorce. I had really bad days. Like, that's, but I stayed healthy. I didn't get sick. My
Mm-hmm.
emotions were really calm and collected. I was not angry. It was just like the things that divorce brings out in people was not there,
That's
you
great.
know? I mean, and yeah, like I'm not trying to bypass, it's a divorce. There was a lot, right? But
Yes.
from the bigger picture, and that's why I always talk about gratitude builds fortitude. It's not just what you're doing today. It's not just building today. It's building tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
because you might be in a situation today, but guess what? Tomorrow, it might be something else. It might be something else. It might be something like, this is life, right?
Yes.
Life is going to happen. It might be good stuff or bad stuff. You could be having a great day and have something minor happen that just totally flips it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter, like whatever that is, there's always going to be stuff going on. So it's not just how do I get through today? It's how do I get through life? And
Yes.
how do I use this to permanently change my brain so that I can start
Mm-hmm.
showing up differently, regardless of that cacophony of chaos that's going on? And how can I minimize that? Right? How can I have the space in my head to think to hear, to
Hmm.
make decisions with a clear head, to show up in a state of calm versus the crazy emotions that come out. And this is why I'm so passionate about what I do, because it's not just it's, first of all, it's not a quick fix at all.
No.
I mean, it does take, it's like you don't go to the gym and you're like, one push up, toned arms, nailed it,
Yep.
right? Like, doesn't happen that way. It's a constant practice. And then it becomes a state of being. And then it's still a constant practice. People who meditate every day for a reason.
Yes.
People who work out every day for a reason. People who eat healthy every day for a reason, right? So gratitude just becomes a part of your being and helps to build that fortitude for when the next things happen.
That's a really great takeaway, great lesson to learn. I know there's so many people like myself who are struggling, and learning these things are difficult. But I like the way you put it. For somebody like me, I can relate to anything training because I love running. It's
Yeah.
never going to stop. Even though today, with my health, running is very painful. I'm very slow. It's very difficult, but I still love it, and it brings me a lot of joy. So when you say a training plan, I think, yes, I know how to do that. I could put together a training plan because it's how I know things. So when you relate it to things like that, it makes it far more digestible and something that I can understand, to know that this is something that I have to think about on a long-term basis. And my life isn't going to change because I do one, because I make that list of 3 things one day and
Yep.
then
Yep.
now it's all better. No, it's not. It takes a lot of work and training to get yourself to that better place.
Yeah. Do we have time for a quick story?
Quick one, yes.
Okay. So this was a few years ago, and I was in the middle of really into this gratitude thing and kind of learning how it works and, really knee deep in changing everything with gratitude. And this was the first time that I really saw it like come to life. And my, at the time, husband, my ex and I were traveling across country. We were in the middle of nowhere and we were trying to find a hotel to stop at. So it was like the middle of, I don't know, Kansas or something. And we get there and it was like 7 o'clock at night. The room wasn't ready. Like, oh, it's going to be a long wait. And so we get the room and it was middle of summer, 90 degrees outside. The air conditioner was broken.
Oh no.
So we walk in the room and it was that like squish, 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 like when the floor is
Yeah.
soaking wet. Yeah. That noise was, yeah. So I don't even want to think about the mold. But it was just like so we go down, we're like, the air conditioner's broken. He's like, I'm sorry, we don't have any other rooms. And we're like, okay, we go back up and they didn't have a towel. They didn't have any towels. We just wanted to take a shower. They didn't have it. So we
Oh
go
my
back down. And my husband at the time was like, he was just like ready to see this, his 5 foot nothing redhead, just exorcist level
Mm.
fireworks. Cause that's how I was. I was that person. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
was super calm, cool, and collective. But once that switch happened, it was just like,
That switch.
completely
We'll
out of control.
talk about that for hours, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we go down. He's just like along for, he just wants entertainment value at this point, right?
Mhm.
Like he just wants to see the fiery little redhead just go explosive on this poor manager. And we go down and he was like, I am so sorry. We don't have any towels. Like, I'm sorry about the air conditioner. I'm sorry about the towels. Like, it was just one of those days at the hotel. I guess something happened. And you want to know the words that came out of my mouth? They were not explosive. They were not yelling, screaming, out of control emotions. It was, I'm sorry you had a bad day. I'm just grateful to have a roof over my head. We'll figure it out. I just want to get a good night's sleep. And I hope your day goes better.
Oh, now that's a testimonial.
And I'm like, and the second like it came out, and I was like, wait, who, what just happened? And even my husband was like, who are you?
That's life.
And that's when I realized, this is how this works. It's not like one day you're just going to wake up and like flip a switch and, you know, gratitude's there. It's gradual, it's over time, but that switch does happen. And it's when gratitude goes from something that you do to who you become. And once that switch is made in your brain, those neurons are wired permanently and it's who you become. And it's much better on this side.
I can't think of a better testimonial and a better wrap up to, why is gratitude important in that story? Because honestly, I know that switch. I have that switch. I have frightened many people in my life. And being able to go from that to that response is pretty tremendous. That is a testimonial that really tells us everything we need to know about what can happen if
Yeah.
you use gratitude.
Yeah.
So, Holly, tell me, how can my listeners find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, while you're listening to this podcast, whatever platform, just hop on over to the Gratitude Builds Fortitude podcast and just start at the top and find an episode that really speaks to you. I've got one coming out on toxic gratitude, and that
Mm,
one's going to be a little salacious.
I'm looking
And
forward to that
yeah,
one.
yeah, that's probably the best way. Also, Instagram. I answer all of my DMs myself. It's not someone on my team. So Holly.Bertone, Bertone. So you can check me out on Instagram and say hello over there. And also, there's a quiz. You can find out your gratitude personality. And I'm sure we'll leave the link in the show notes to that as well.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing episode, and I really appreciate you joining us and sharing so much of your knowledge. It's so helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy, so much for having me on. And I really look forward to connecting with your listeners.
Yes.